Die! Can't be regenerated. I will then.
Because my proto-man decks
So you go.
getting ripped.
I can't do anything else. Because he has my mirror, bastard.
Dude, I had to borrow it.
I just want it back. That's all I want.
You know, that's for the future to be decided. I want it.
Actually, in response to playing that,
I'm gonna die.
What is it? Are you dead?
Yeah.
What?
Kill me.
Oh.
In response to me playing this?
yeah,
In response to me playing this, you're gonna do this that to what? To this. Okay, so basically you kill this.
Well, I got into Magic 4th grade. My friend Paul had some cards. We played, it was fun. I saved up some money from allowance doing extra chores, got some cards at a local hobby shop, and have been playing ever since.
Well, one of my friends in Pleasanton kind of introduced my brother, and I watched him play. I kind of learned by watching him play, so I kind of taught myself.
It actually started like really young when I was a school bus, some kids were playing it, they gave me cards, I didn't understand the rules. Then later I had cards and I understood the rules and I started playing in the high school kind of Magic Club. I just played there and I gave it up for a while, then I'm kind of back now playing it.
I started probably about 10 years ago. My mom bought me some decks that she saw at a random hobby store, something like that. She's like, oh, this looks interesting, some kind of fantasy card game. She bought some stuff for me and a friend.
Well, it's a game, it's fun. You know, I don't get my decks aren't usually good enough to win, but you know, you get to laugh and have a good time, and it's multiplayer, you play with other people, that's always a fun time.
I mean, for me, the appeal to it is it's a social thing to do, it's fun to play with your friends. It's better than just sitting at a computer and you know, playing games that way.
I definitely think, so part of it is, you know, this silly desire to win at some totally arbitrary game, like any totally arbitrary game. I really like the sort of the diversity in it. Like, I mean, if you're playing something like chess or whatever, which is definitely, you know, a mental game, you know, there's so many standard chess openings that everyone knows. But if you're drafting or something, then you're sitting down and there's this totally random pool of cards that you're drawing from.
The fact that it's infinitely variable, right? You know, you can always make a new deck based on some crazy theme.
I got into Magic back in the 4th grade, actually. Just playing around with friends one day, they mentioned the game existed, and so I started playing along with it, and I've just been hooked ever since. I enjoy it mostly for the competition. Competition's a lot of it being able to try and play people and beat people, just the strategy of it all.
I don't know, it was just kind of interesting. Just playing out cards, hanging out with my friends.
I got into Magic because a friend of mine got given some cards by her family as a present, and we'd get together and play games. And so she said, hey Dave, let's try this one. And so I just really liked it. I played about 300 or 400 different games, and Magic is just the best one.
Most people here are pretty calm. Like, the employees are encouraged to play games at the store, and so there's lots of community interaction, and people are generally very friendly towards each other. Friday nights, we're pretty packed and got a lot of stuff to do, but we generally still find time to at least play a couple games. I have to deal with scheduling the employees, I deal a lot with ordering new products, and also just general keeping the store going sort of day to day. Don't worry about it. They're actually really easy to open.
Well, on Friday nights we get obviously we have a lot of Magic players. That's our main attraction pretty much for the week most of the time. So there's a big sense of communities that, like, there's some place where people can go and hang out, play Magic, trade cards. We have candy and soda, so it's like a really cool place to hang out. If you're not playing Magic, we also have the computers. We have board games. We play board games sometimes. Like, there's a lot of stuff to do here, and it's just like a cool place to hang out. I actually think I'm putting this.
I mean, half the fun of coming here is the gaming. Half the fun of coming here is hanging out with your friends, and the other half is probably insulting your friends while you're hanging out with them gaming. I think the three of them make the three halves of Magic. But really here, almost none. They're all nice people to hang out with. I'm friends with most of them. Nobody cheats. Everybody's a good sportsman. On the whole, that's pretty true in the gaming community as a whole, which is kind of rare now that I think about it. It's unusual for many communities, but it's really like that. And it's a great place to play. I recommend anybody who likes to game any kind of game. There's stuff going on here all the time.
When Richard Garfield first made the game, it was created just to be something that people played in between rounds of Dungeons & Dragons, or when it wasn't your turn to play and you were sitting around the kitchen table with 8 or 10 other people, and you know the dungeon master was talking with a couple other players and you knew that was going to be happening for 10 to 15 minutes. You just bust out this game and play a game with the person next to you. It wasn't intended to be a huge thing. It was just a diversion that he'd made for his friends. And he took it to a game convention, and Wizards of the Coast looked at the game and said, wow, this looks pretty good. And they bought it and produced it, and it was pretty good.
James, Tam, and whoever that other person I said before you distracted me.
Do it again then, I guess. Oh well. So James and... You could just read the names and see if any of them look familiar.
I just did. And
Jeffrey Lane.
Jeffrey Lane. You were the Winds.
For the Winds. All right. I need to get into this cabinet, please.
Wait, what does that mean? What does the Winds mean? What does that mean?
Magic players have developed their own form of slang to separate themselves from the rest of society. Because there isn't enough already to separate us, that is.
What do you think are some of the preconceived notions people have about Magic players and Magic cards in general?
Well, obviously the notions are, all the Magic players are geeks, and I wouldn't put it too far past. But I mean, everybody that plays has different hobbies. It's not like we're all the same people.
Nowadays, they know of it, but assume it's more of a kid's game, more like how Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the Pokemon card game are perceived, or perhaps more like Dungeons & Dragons, just some way for us to pretend we're wizards.
I think that, it's a way to use your mind, use your brain to, find out all these strategies and, find all these loopholes or whatever. But most people are kind of biased about it.
There's a lot of people who, I think, really don't know anything about the game and don't want to know anything about the game and just, oh, it's that geeky thing that they go do.
I think it's a card game. Probably think it's a nerdy card game. Maybe just lump us in with the kids who play Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!
Some of the preconceived notions, scrawny, not very self-sufficient, usually living with the parents, and not very, how do I say, it's just not very, not successful or busy in life, kind of like losers that just play games.
I think that they think that we're geeks, and they're probably right. The people here are just what they are. A little too smart, a little too thoughtful, often socially awkward, and very competitive. And we just have our own kind of personality, and that's just the way it is.
Magic players, it depends on the player. I'd say no one really has a group of where they put, okay, the Magic players goes in this group in their mind or whatever. I don't think it's like that. I think it's kind of based on that person, what else they do as well.
This is, for the most part, 99% of the DVDs that we have. It's anime. There's some over there too. But this is for the most part. Most of our anime. There's still a layer after that, or behind it. So, I don't know. This is one of my favorite ones right here. Samurai X. I watch that a lot. Show most of my friends. Here's another good one. King of Bandit Gene. It's pretty cool.
What's this one about?
It's about like a king of thieves, or king of bandits, and basically out to steal all the cool stuff. Well, this is basically my room. So you can see I have lots of random hobbies. Legos. I haven't really played too much on Legos lately, but that was one of my hobbies. I have a lot of Legos. And one of my other hobbies is this thing.
That's cool.
Pretty fun. Sometimes I go in the backyard and swing it around.
Alright, well, just show us what you got.
I don't really know much about it because I don't really use it. I'm not professional or anything, so, yeah.
The way that Magic works is each player starts the game with 7 cards in their hand. So the basic card types are lands, or mana sources, and spells. The spell types are instant, sorcery, enchantment, artifact, creature. The colors are green, red, white, blue, and black. And each color is good at doing different things. The person who goes first gets to play a land on their turn, and then they can tap that land for mana and use that mana to do things. So the idea behind creatures is that a creature is a card that stays in play until it goes to until some effect causes it to go to the graveyard. Generally, the effect that causes it to go to the graveyard is you attack your opponent with a creature and your opponent blocks with their creature. And one or both of the creatures will trade with each other, or basically they both kill each other. And the way that you know whether a creature is going to kill another and survive the attack from the other creature is by the little numbers in the lower right-hand corner of the card. The first number in front of the slash is the creature's power. That's how much damage the creature deals anytime it enters combat with either a player or another creature. The toughness is the number after the slash. That's how much damage is required for the creature to die. If a creature takes that much damage or more, then the creature goes to the graveyard. And it's no longer in play, you can no longer attack with it or use any of its special abilities. The really neat thing about Magic is that all the cards, or all the interesting cards, break the rules in some way or another. And so the trick to good play and to figuring out how to make good decks is to break the rules in ways that work in your favor and not in your opponent's. The casual aspect is that Magic is a social game. You can't play Magic on your own. Sometimes you just want to kick back and hang out and just have something to do with your hands and have some light brain work while you just sit around and chat. The competitive aspect of Magic is it's a game. One person wins and one person loses. If you think about it in those terms, there are optimal ways to play the game so that you win more often. And a lot of people don't like to lose. Not only do they not like to lose, but they like to win. And they like to do this in all aspects of life, and why should a game be any exception? I mean, they just want to do the best that they can.
I started playing competitively in 2000. I went to regionals, made top 8, went to states, got 5th. That was 2001, and I haven't placed anywhere major since then. I don't think I'm washed up, but I might be.
I was never really serious until about 2 years ago. I went to my first tournament and had a lot of fun there and decided to play more seriously.
If you want to really get into tournaments, there's like city level tournaments and national level tournaments and international level tournaments. And so however good you want to get, there's somebody at that level. I personally am very competitive, and a lot of people I know are very competitive, and that's why we like to play games. And so I really like that aspect of the game. You get to pound the other guy into the ground.
You know, everybody starts playing Magic doing it with their friends as a social activity. I don't know anybody that's actually started playing Magic on a competitive level. And even just hypothetically, if people had, they probably gave it up fairly quickly because it's a tough game to learn on a high level.
the PTQ. If you win, you go to the Pro Tour. This one feeds into Pro Tour London, which is, rather cool, to say the least. I hope to do well myself. It's sealed, which means you get a limited card pool, random cards that you have to choose. And I hope to draft well.
Really, it's just a bigger stakes tournament, so it feels like there's more on the line, so it's a little more intense when you're playing, and you play against better people, and that makes it a more fun event. I think there's definitely people who are better. Like, I've played with people who are much better players. I feel like I have a decent chance of top 8ing like that, something like that, in the top 8 players, but still, there are some really good players out there, and I would be lucky if I were to place higher than 16th, in the sense that they're just better players than me out there.
If I can have your attention, please. Everyone be quiet. Good morning. Welcome to the Pro Tour qualifier for London. Hopefully you guys are trying to qualify for London and not some other Pro Tour, because there's only one slot for London today. There are 85 people today. This is a sealed deck tournament. You should all be getting a deck registration sheet, a tournament pack of Champions of Kamigawa, and 2 boosters of Betrayers of Kamigawa. After everybody has their product, I will have you all doing this at the same time. Everybody will open up all of their cards, that is, the tournament pack and the boosters. You will then sort the cards by set, color, and then alphabetically, and then register the cards in the total column on the deck registration sheet. You'll have half an hour to build your decks. You have 30 minutes. You may begin.
Well, the most important thing to remember about sealed deck is that it's 40 cards, and you just have to have what you've been given. Whether it's what you opened in a small tournament or in a Pro Tour qualifier, what got passed back to you. So there's no drafting strategy. You really have to build the deck with the card pool that you have. It doesn't really flow with your preferences of if you want to play a control deck or an aggressive deck. You don't really have that choice all the time. Typically, the way that you do it is you set out all 5 of the colors and your artifacts, and you look through each color as an individual color, and you make 2 piles, one of good cards, one of bad cards. And you do that for all 5 of the colors, and then you start looking at the piles of good cards, and you look for a creature count, and removal spells, and then utility spells. You'll typically see players, once they've separated their good from their bad, they'll also separate creatures from spells. And they'll choose their colors based on being able to make their creatures deal damage to the opponent. You should know your creature count. You have to know how many creatures are good to play. You have to know which creatures are good, which abilities are good, which are bad. There's knowing how to build your mana curve. I mean, most of your cards should cost between 3 and 4 mana. It's not just how much mana things cost, it's when you can play them. I mean, if something costs 4 mana and is only good on turn 4, you look at this and you say, well, it costs 4 mana, and things that cost 4 are generally good because you can play them. But you also have to look at what point in the game it is good. If it's only good in the early game and it costs a lot of mana, it's like 4 mana, it's probably not worthwhile. Things that are good in the late game, generally you can allow them to cost more mana, but you don't want to play a lot of cards that are only good in the late game, because if you draw a lot of cards that are only good in the late game and the early game, you're going to get beaten up.
I think I opened cards that at first I thought were decent, but it turned out I think it's actually not so good. I ended up going with black and white, but I'm thinking about it now, I probably should have just added in another color because I needed it, taken out some of the worst cards, and gone black, white, red. I think I might sideboard to do that.
I pulled the best possible colors I could have, and I got 3 Genjus, 2 Genju of the Cedar and 1 black Genju. Good removal, good curve. Every card of mine's playable. I can't believe I actually got this.
Yeah, I got black and green, but mostly red was stronger than the black, so I went down a little bit on the black and went up on the red.
The top 8 was made up of Avri Rahamim, Jeff Huang, Hugh Moore, Jonathan Hom, Lockman Chen, David Ochoa, Ian Rice, Thomas Jim.
Phone number, email, and fine. Oh, actually, no, address. Okay, so we were playing in the finals, and my opponent lost the first game, and I offered him a split, even after the fact that he lost.
We were playing for a slot at Pro Tour London, and he asked me, and $500, and then a box were the total prize options. And in the beginning, I didn't want to sell. I actually thought I was going to go to London. After thinking about it for a while, I realized that realistically, if I got this, even if I got the slot, I probably wouldn't end up going to London. And I mean, it'd be fun, but he's already set up for it, so I might as well give it to him.
I really like to play like the competition between the people. There's something like, you know how, like if you play chess or something like that, the mental competition, it's really there. You get there's this spark. So when you're playing against all the other people who know the rules and stuff like that, and you get that spark between them, and it's close and it's fun. And that competition is so great. And when you're done with that, you can play just fun games. It's such a great experience for me. I love it so much.